so much.
Sure.
How's everyone doing?
Good.
Happy, excited to be here and ready to rock and roll.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Actually, on a note of wire fraud, you should, one thing that I always do now, just because, you know, there's an element of it that's like, okay, what if the worst thing happened, right? It kills the deal. Like, forget, I mean, you obviously you care about your client's money and all of that matters and is very important. But like the side note too, to just remember it, I mean, it's just like a dead deal. And so what I will do often is I will get on the phone and I will look at the numbers and I will talk to the escrow officer or someone that's going and review them line by line and make sure it's correct. And then I will call the person and then I'll encourage them to do that together. There just can't be enough safeguards. And we haven't found, we've been very fortunate and very careful with everything we do. But there was a situation I read about recently where like literally like they enter into an email like a hacker and manipulate the instructions. So it could be like an email from Jeremy to Ruby and they get in and adjust the attachment. It's unbelievable. I can't believe it can happen, but just take it so seriously. So, okay. It's great to be with everyone. I'm excited to be here. I got to go just last week. I went to New York. Actually, anyone ever been to New York? Anyone ever eaten at a restaurant called Peter Luger's?
No.
Anyone? Oh man. All right. Well, you won't appreciate it, but I went there for the first time. It's amazing. So put it on your list of things to do in New York. Got it?
Was it Italian or what's that?
It's like a steakhouse. Yeah. And it's crazy. And they come out with like a giant steak that they slice up and it's insane. The place is crazy. And the New Yorkers are like rude there while you're trying to, I mean, it's so funny. If you've ever been there, you know, like you kind of have to take a moment and remember, like, I'm in New York, like, because some of the people that are like the workers, you know, like, anyway, it's so funny. So, but it's great. I got to go golf there and we golfed one of the most special golf courses on the earth. It's ranked normally like number 4 in the whole entire world, called Shinnecock. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of it, out on Long Island and stuff, but they've had like the US Opens there and cool stuff. So anyway, what have you done for fun recently? Someone give me a couple good ones. Let's hear. What's the plan for the summer? Who's done something fun or is going to do something fun? Just a couple. Yeah.
I was just at the Ritz in Dana Point.
Ooh,
So I love that place.
that is amazing. My family, we grew up always going to a beach house right there. And I say beach house, did not have money. This was like 7 families packed into one beach house, but it was right on Beach Road, right near Dana Point, and we went there all the time. It's such a beautiful area. The Ritz there, I've heard, is just amazing. So good for you.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else? Amy, is there a lake at the lake house right now?
Yes.
All right, that's good news.
A lot of water.
All right, awesome. Okay, go ahead.
Well, mine's not as bougie as yours. But we're going, I have a bunch of camping trips planned this summer.
Where are you going?
All over Washington State, but also just around here.
Fun.
Like Spruces and.
And where in Washington?
Eastern Washington.
Cool.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't been at all to the Pacific Northwest, it has just got to be one of the most underrated, yet given lots of praise. It's so beautiful. Oregon, I love too. Go ahead.
I went to school at Washington State, that's in Eastern.
Yeah,
Where are you vacationing in Eastern? It's Palouse country.
Well, my grandparents live out there.
Fun.
It's my grandma's 90th birthday, so we're doing a big family camping trip. But we did a lot of like Boulder Caves. Do you know where that's at? And
In Washington State.
yeah, it's between Snowball and Pass.
Oh, something fun. Okay, go ahead.
So we don't usually stay like it's right there.
that's the sales meeting today. We're not sales meeting anything. We're talking about fun stuff. All right. I did get us started.
Yeah.
0 fun. The reason I'm asking about this, guys, is because I was asked to talk about mindset today, and I've been thinking a lot about, boy, how did I feel before I left and how do I feel now? Just like exactly what's going on upstairs for me between the ears. And have you ever gone and done something and just all of a sudden you're like, man, I just feel better. Anyone ever done that? it's pretty remarkable, the control that our mind has. Right? And anybody here ever read the David Goggins book, You Can't Hurt Me or Can't Hurt Me? If you haven't read this or listened to it, man, he is so powerful in what he talks about the mind. I mean, it's the most important aspect of everything. I know I've told this story in Summit, so I won't tell the whole thing, but the quick version is when he first, the book Living with a Seal, another great book, there's a guy that says, hey, I need you to give me 100 pull-ups. And the guy says, I can't. Says, go give me. He does like 5 or 6 and is like done. By the 7th pull up, he's like swinging on the bar to try to pull himself up. And then the trainer says, give me 100. So you owe me 93 more. It's like, wait a minute. I just did 7 and you saw I couldn't. He's like, give me 100. Oh, he did it, but it took him 4 hours. Pretty stupid and like crazy, but the point of the story is like, how many limitations do you put on yourself? How many limitations do I put on myself? Think about right now the things in your head and the things that are kind of controlling your life that might be something that is just the story that you continue to tell yourself, and exactly sending you kind of in the wrong direction. And this story to me is just the epitome of the idea that, holy cow, when we start saying no, 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 and I can't, and I can't, and I can't, or impossible, right? What that does is it eliminates creativity. Anybody here ever felt like just my creativity is gonzo? So I'll give you an example. Anybody here ever talk to or listen to John Syatt speak? If you have, raise your hand. John Syatt, he has said for years, multiple times, talked about this idea like, don't tell me what I can't do. Everything's possible. Or what did Kevin Garnett say? Nothing is impossible at the end of the finals. He messed up the t-shirt, right? There's this idea there. And I remember I used to hear John say that when he would be like, everything's possible. And I'd go, no, it's not. Come on, John. And here's the thing that I used to finally say in my head. And this is what's so funny. Someone trying to motivate me. Someone trying to pull something positive out of me. And all I'm doing is thinking why they're so dead wrong, right? We all do that. Some of you have done it to me today already. And you're sitting there and you're just thinking about it. I'm like, okay, John, well, I'll never be the center for the Los Angeles Lakers. Ha! Gotcha. I mean, that's in my mind what I'm thinking to myself, because it's like impossible, right? We all agree, Jeremy's not going to be the center for the Los Angeles Lakers. So I was telling this story once, and even I got so comfortable with this idea that at one point I was using this as part of a training one day to kind of show people like, there are some things that aren't possible. So I was trying to use it as like a positive thing. And then this senior lady in the back of the room raises her hand. And she says, she's very soft-spoken and quiet. And she said it in the sweetest way. And she said, well, what if you were the owner of the Los Angeles Lakers? And I thought, man, now I could sit and say, well, I'll never be the owner of the Los Angeles. Yeah, and I wouldn't ever be, right? Because I'm saying that. But you can see the point that she made that, well, if Jeremy was the owner of the Los Angeles Lakers, could I then be the center? No. Would we have a good basketball team? Not at all. No, but not at all. Come on. Highly unlikely.
Yeah.
Let's stick with that. Highly unlikely, but right? Creativity existed in her mind. A solution existed where in my mind it wasn't. And look, I know for a fact that right now every one of us can come up with things like, well, pigs won't fly and blah, blah, whatever. The point is, don't allow yourself to be so caught up in this world where I want to prove something wrong that might motivate or help my mindset, rather than just focus on the idea that, wow, there are a lot of things that are possible. And if you were willing to allow yourself to get creative in this environment of real estate, it's remarkable what can be possible. And so today I have a few thoughts for you on the mindset and what I think is valuable and important, and I love to hear any of your feedback. But there's two elements that I think are so critical. And they start with like number one, the creation. Okay, when I say strong mindset, what do you think of? What comes to your mind? Discipline, good, I like that. Yeah, so if we're gonna have a strong mindset, we're gonna probably be disciplined. DSCI. Okay,
Confident.
confident, yeah, I think so. What else? Anything else? What do you think of?
Perspective.
Perspective? Tell us more about that.
Glass half empty, half full.
Yeah, like it's easier to maybe like be okay with what's happening around you in current circumstances. Like, what's a situation where people sometimes lose their mind over something? If they had a little more perspective, maybe it could strengthen their mindset. Anyone been on a freeway recently in rush hour? Okay, do we lose perspective sometimes when we're in those moments, or do people? 100%. And is it because we have a weak mindset? Probably at that moment, yeah. It doesn't mean it's a permanent thing, but yeah, like I would say that as an individual, I have evolved over the years on the roads, and it's so fascinating to me to watch other people now. When it's like, okay, here's this one. This is the good example. Have you ever been on the freeway and someone, maybe Austin Kales, is driving like a maniac down the freeway, right? And you're driving near them and they're all over the place, right? And then 3 minutes later, you're sitting next to them at the same stoplight, right? Have they lost a little perspective there, do you think? Right? It's pretty interesting. And the reason I think the mindset comes up in this world is that think of how many bad decisions get made out there. I mean, it's pretty remarkable. And then you might say, Jeremy, why are we talking about vacations, fun things, and car road rage right now? But you've got to be able to translate this into your world of your daily lives and your schedules and your real estate. And think for a moment about how your mindset is impacting you and your ability to create a strong mindset. Look, we've been talking about the foundation, right, for years, and all of you have heard this. And the foundation of real estate, right? Purpose, why, vision, all of that. If you were to take mindset like this, you could just take every one of those items as like an appendage to it, right? Purpose, skills, systems. Every single one of these things is impacted so significantly from the idea of what's happening in your mindset. And so we have to create one. And so how do you become more disciplined, more confident, have more perspective? What else, Aubrey?
I think also something I'm learning more about, having clarity on what you're, I guess, what you're aiming for, what you're shooting for.
Yeah. Clarity. I like that. I mean, it's just more even like the idea of like where you're going, right? And you know that. I mean, do you feel like you're stronger? Okay, go ahead, Brenda Lee.
I think my best mindset, it comes when I'm very versatile and I'm calm,
Good. Good.
flexible.
Calm. Versatile. Man, this marker is not gonna make it. The good news is that you guys can't read my handwriting anyway.
Yeah.
My wife said to me once, she watched me like in like a Sunday school class, like writing on a board, and she's like, it looks painful the way you write on a whiteboard, like it might be hurting you in some way. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say capacity. I think your ability to handle different things in different situations.
Yes, if you have a strong mindset, aren't you more capable? I remember early on as an agent. Look, and you guys know we're facing the ups and downs every day. I remember one time early on in my career and like just trying to get started, and I'm showing up, and my wife called me one day on the phone to be like, you left a towel not in the right place in the bathroom off the tub or something like that. And my goodness, like that's not a big deal. But I remember like actually asking her, like, can you please not call me with that kind of stuff in the mornings while I'm trying to work and prospect? And I'm like, I look back on that and it's a little bit like, okay, I was trying to protect my mindset, right? But I'm also like, how weak was I that I can allow something like that to even impact me at that crazy level? I mean, it's bizarre, right? Did I see another hand go up? Yeah, two more. Let's do two more. Go ahead.
So your conscious mindset.
Okay, good. Yeah, your ability.
Unconscious.
Yes. Well, I think that goes along with the clarity as well, but just how conscious are you? I love that. That's perfect. Okay, go ahead, Steve.
But just your drive or focus, motivation, kind of all those. I can't read that from that.
I know, drive, focus. There's no reason for you. This is more of a map for me than you guys, so just close your eyes and listen.
There's another marker over there too.
Yeah, I'm learning this one's gonna work on the fat side of it, so I'm gonna keep trying for that. And you know what, guys, my commitment to you is I'm gonna be more legible the rest of the day. All right. Okay, so if this is a strong mindset, this is what we think of when we're talking about a mindset, okay? So let's move right here. How do we create it? What can you do to create this type of person, this type of mindset? What are some of the activities? Because I know everybody in this room has had your moments of discipline, have had your moments of confidence and perspective and clarity and consciousness, right? We've all had our moments. We've all had our bad moments. What was working so well when you had these? How does somebody create that? Think about it for a second. Go ahead.
I think it's like what we used to feed our minds, like information, what we read, what we see,
Sure.
what we listen to.
Yeah.
And depending on that, we kind of like, either like step out of our creative, zone, or we start stepping into fear, or,
No question.
or
Yes. Do you hear that question? That's a perfect question. How are you feeding your mind? What is coming in, right? The good, the bad, and the ugly. George talked about it so much at Summit the other day. I thought it was, it was the last Summit. Personal development, right? If you pause for a moment and think, well, what am I actually doing to create some personal development in my life? Think about that. In both health, I sat there after he said that, and I wrote down the health, wealth, relationship stuff. And I seriously was just like, okay, what exactly am I doing in my life right now to do that, to actually develop personally in these worlds? It's pretty remarkable when you put some action items to it. So great point. How do you feed your mind, Amy?
And this creation part, in our personal lives is really important, right? We want to
Of course.
become, but in business, especially in real estate, developing the skill of creation means we are able to look at what is in contrast to what could be.
Oh, good.
And that's very important when we're in the middle of a transaction, when the problems arise, and they arise all the time,
Yeah.
right? To not get stuck in something, it's a meth house now,
Yeah.
and what a bummer, but to be able to go, okay, but what could it be?
Yeah,
And how are we going to solve the problems of this? And
exactly.
that's where the creation, and we're called upon to create things all the time.
Yeah,
I always tell my agents, where are we up there on the food chain?
yeah,
People, we're at the top of the food chain, right? We're in a transaction, we're on top of everybody else. They're looking to us for guidance, and we have to be creative. There's no two deals that are exactly the same.
no question
There's no
about it.
two people, and we have to, people come in and they have issues, or they're upset about things. We have to create solutions. But that only comes if you can get out of what is in the moment.
Yeah. Well, I think to your point, right? You have to personally achieve some level, right, of this mindset, which kudos to everyone for just even like showing up in this room today, right? But not only that, you showed up and went out and got a real estate license. You showed up, and at somewhere along the line, you have rejected the norm and said, I want something different in my life. So from a mindset standpoint, man, you're pushing the boundaries that most people ever get to see. But then when you're engaged in a transaction, you go, well, how does this translate into business? And for any of you, it might even be like you might be seeing some level of success, but it might be just driving you bananas. And so there's an element of this that's looking from what I'm hearing Amy say too, is like, well, what are you doing to control the situation? Because everyone is looking to you. And have you ever engaged in a transaction with somebody who does not have a good mindset? Just bottom line, I have. It is hard. I mean, I keep going back to this creativity thing, right? When the creativity is gone, all that's left are these terrible emotions. And in a real estate transaction where everyone's trying to get to a finish line at somewhere, and you've got someone who's like, not gonna happen, sorry, this whatever stumbling blocks in the way, it's over. It's very challenging. So I think that's really well said. Okay, guys, what else? What can we do to create? Go ahead.
Well, I think, first of all, it's just awareness too. Sometimes I think we're so busy. And to the first point, like what you're feeding your mind with, we numb a lot or distract ourselves a lot.
Sure.
So even just slowing down enough to ask yourself if you're aware in the present moment of even where your brain is going and what it's thinking and what
No
it's
doubt.
thinking,
Yeah.
and then being able to redirect it.
Like one of the most self-aware people I know is Michael Scott from The Office. Is that guy? I mean, he's so non-self-aware. Just be the opposite of him and you'll be on the right track, right? So funny. Okay, I saw chat. Yeah.
When I think of this and when I think I'm at my best self is when I time block my day. And there's structure. Is when I get really focused and I have a really positive mindset.
Yeah.
So when I really focus in on between this time and this time, I'm working on my personal fitness and
Yeah.
I'm exercising. Or when I'm, studying whatever
Yeah.
it is I'm reading or studying, or, when I'm when I'm prospecting, like
Yeah.
I prospect sellers, I prospect buyers. I don't just prospect, I prospect,
Kind of interesting, actually. You're saying this. It's sort of it's like you're living what we're describing here, right? If you're talking about, well, I want to be better with my mindset, right? I would say first and foremost, you start with how are you feeding your mind, right? And then all of these other things become so important, but it's like act as if, right? Act as if you've got the confidence. Act as if you've already got the clarity, right? And do the actions that require that, like going to the gym or whatever it might be, getting on the phone. And who here, when you were first an agent, like knew nothing and you worked through I'm shocked at the transactions that I worked through and was like, oh man, I shouldn't be on camera telling this, but I'll say when I was at Discover Card, I was like a call center employee. I'll never forget completing a balance transfer for someone. And I had no clue what I was doing. And it's like, it's just remarkable, right? But my job was to act as if. And oh yeah, this is how we're going to do that, right? And you're working through it. Hopefully you're strong enough mindset to ask for some help along the way. But kind of an interesting thing, I just talked to someone, a friend actually just recently, she struggles with significantly like paranoia with her children and the idea that like, okay, something catastrophic is going to happen. And it's starting to create like crazy behaviors to where I'm not really crazy actually, because I actually don't do this exact thing, but I'm always worried about my kids. But like she'll check on them like 6 times in the night to make sure they're breathing. Right? Yes. I mean, I see your faces kind of like, huh? And some of you are like, yeah, I do that. No, but you can see, right? Can we all agree? Like, well, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like you're checking it, but you're like, wait a minute, but that's really unhealthy too, And so anyway, I've been talking to this individual and she's been sharing with me what she's been doing, and that there's been this therapy that she engaged in. I think it's so applicable here, is that the therapy that they have you do is, sure, you talk about it and you do this and that, but kind of what you start to do and the way you train your mind in this is that you stop checking on the kids. Like that's just the rule. Like tonight, you cannot open that door and check on your kid to see if, and it sounds crazy, right? But the purpose is that you start to train your mind and go, oh, guess what? They're okay.
You just put a
And now-
camera in.
Yeah, yeah. She's like got them hooked up with like monitors and stuff. Like, guess what? I didn't go in once. That's awesome. But seriously, think about that for a moment. The idea that the only way you're ever going to work past that is by actually engaging in it. And it's so interesting in our world. Very, very similar. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, not to get too personal, but something my own therapist said is like, to your point, you stop it. And you don't, and you stop the action, but you're gonna also replace that thought with something more
Sure,
positive. You
yes.
know, like some, or a better version of that worry,
Yes,
whatever that looks like.
totally. Right. It's 100% correct. And it's such good, it's such a good thing. And you think about for yourself, like, what can you do? Right? And what are you? And so anyway, first and foremost, though, guys, I just go back to this. And you hit the nail on the head where it's like, well, okay, and you've heard this 1,000 times. What are you reading? What are you listening to? Who are you spending your time with? All of that, right? Who's heard that before in this room or on the 6th floor, right? We've heard it. Well, let me ask you a real question. What are you listening to? What are you reading? I know you should read good stuff, right? I'm not going to do this right now. But I know you should, and I know you should watch good stuff. And I know that someone is sitting in this room right now going, I've heard this 1,000 freaking times about mindset at Everest. Okay. I know you're doing it. But if I were to sit down with you one-on-one right now, and I were to say, so tell me about the people you're spending your time with. What shows are you watching? You're like The Walking Dead. Like, it's like, not that there's anything wrong with that show, but I'm just saying, like, are you actually consciously finding opportunities to create a strong mindset? Are you listening to the right stuff? I know you should, but are you? And that's where this discipline comes in place of just saying to yourself, boy, yeah, I can do better. And look, guys, we all have our spots. Right? I don't know about you, but I know when we talk about health, wealth, and relationships, it's like you're always looking for the balance somewhere. But usually in my life, 2 out of the 3 are going well and the other one's not. And if I start to do one, it's so hard to just find that balance, right? And so that's where it becomes so important to do this. Okay, so number 1, so look at our timing. Number 1, creation of the mindset. Once you have created a strong mindset, whatever that means to you right now. Number 2, you must protect that mindset. Okay. So you've got it. You are what you are. You're still working on it. And I mean, this is an evolving process. And I think you could argue that it's the same thing, but think about it in your own life. I'd love if anyone has any examples. What do you do to protect? Because it takes hard work to build this. I would say it takes work to build this. What are you doing to protect it? Or have you ever lost it and had to work back again? Just curious. Go ahead.
So I may or may not be one of those drivers that you don't like to see. And something I do to protect my mindset is when I'm driving in, I'll listen to either a podcast or a book that's positive and can not distract me, but keep my mind on something positive rather than the slow person in front of me that won't get over even though they're in the fast lane.
It's only doing 78.
Right? We all agree.
78 is totally respectable.
Oh, it's not.
78 is totally respectable on the freeway.
Plain is for adults with things to do. Get out of here.
Maybe not.
In that lane, we're good with the ticket.
Yeah, not in that. All right.
For mine, and it's something I've been working on recently a lot, is literally trying to think of the most simplest things that I'm not doing during the day. Like I'm even more so than looking at how many transactions I want to do by the end of the year.
Mhm.
It's like if I'm not going to bed at the right time, or if I'm not drinking as much water as I want to drink, I'm not ever gonna reach that. And I know that sounds silly, but if I'm not perfecting the most simplest things that I should just be doing naturally throughout my day, why would I think that I'm going to achieve the goals that I've set for myself ultimately in my business.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good thought. And I think it helps you become more conscious and more self-aware of what is needed from you. Amy.
And along those same lines, I feel I am the strongest in my mind when I do what I commit to do to myself.
Yeah.
Meaning I'm integrity with myself. If I say I'm gonna read 2 chapters before I go to bed, if I actually read the 2 chapters, it gives me confidence. I feel good about it.
I love
We
that.
lie to ourselves all the time, right?
Yes, we do.
And we say we got these big plans about all these things we're gonna do. I mean, sometimes we set up this ridiculous schedule that there's no way that we can attain it. But when you actually outline something and then you do it, that is the biggest confidence builder I think that there is out there.
Man, that is such good advice, guys, from a seasoned pro. I mean, that is awesome. And if you think about that, I mean, we lie to ourselves, even with our alarm clocks. Sometimes the first thing we do every day is lie to ourselves. Don't we?
Yeah.
Hit the snooze button, right? I mean, it's insane what happens sometimes with
I was
that.
gonna say along those lines. Picking up, just punching out a list, and sometimes it's just like, I can't get through all these. But I'm kind of old fashioned, I use the post-it notes, I write stuff down,
Good.
and when I cross those things off, I'm like, man, that was a victory. And if I can go back and look and I can just see, I'm crossing those off, it makes me feel like I have accomplished what it was I set out to do. I don't always get through all of them, but that's just me. I just feel like I cross that one off. I can move on.
Totally. And I don't care how someone's doing it. And I'm looking something up. I want to read to you guys, but I don't really care how you do it. And I know in this room, there's lots of different ways people keep track of even the way in which you manage your leads. I've had people over the years say, oh, well, I just use Post-it notes, or I just use 3x5 cards, or some elaborate system, right? And people say, well, what's the best? And I would say, well, it's whatever one you're actually going to use. That's all that matters. Or same thing with what time am I prospecting? Well, it's irrelevant and more what matters most. But the point is that your mindset and your ability to have that strong mindset helps you keep engaged in this. Go ahead.
Well, I think one of the ways to protect too is environment, just making sure
Yeah.
that the environment you're in is a positive one. Whether that's the people you're around, the space that you go to, again, what you listen to, read, things like that. It's just,
No,
Keeping it
100%. I couldn't agree more with you. It's so essential. And again, kudos to you guys for being here and man, even in our building, it's been a little chaotic recently. And so like we were just talking from a business standpoint, how excited we are that like we're gonna have this open house next week with the new first floor open. It's like, man, we're just excited to just be able to like, that is settled. And now it's just focused so much on the business, right? And it's so good, but it's crazy how it impacts your mindset. I maybe shouldn't tell this story, but I'm gonna tell it anyway. And thankfully I'm being recorded. But mindset does funny things to us. And it's on this note is that before I say this, full disclaimer, I'm not teasing anyone and I'm not being mean about anyone and I'm not anything. I actually have to look on my thing to make sure who's listening right now. But I know this is stupid. It's worth it, I promise. We had an employee, I'll say an employee that was thinking maybe this isn't a great fit anymore. And the question was, well, why? And the answer was, I'm just so stressed out with this move
wow.
from the 6th to the 1st floor. Now, look, I am not teasing or picking on anyone, and I'm only using this because it is so important for us to recognize the ability of our minds to tell us a story and do something. This individual and all of the individuals that are employees are basically just being, hey, work from home for a few days, and when you show back up, all of your stuff's going to be set up somewhere else. Nothing changes except you're 10 feet away from a soda fountain drink for free. I mean, it is so many things. And again, it doesn't mean that it's perfect, any of that. I recognize there's fault there, but the point is that it just makes you go, wait a minute. what are the stories that we tell ourselves sometimes that we allow ourselves to just totally change our lives at some level? I mean, the place that you're employed is pretty important, right? And the fact that you are employed is pretty important. And the way the market's shifting and the way the economy is shifting and stuff like that. It's not as much of a, oh, go get my job anywhere I want and get paid as much as I want and work however I want from home or whatever, right? It's shifting a little bit. And so it's pretty interesting when you think about the stories that we tell ourselves. It's just remarkable. I want to share one quick thing with you guys before we leave, because it's something that we don't talk about enough and I think is so important. And I'll note before I close here, I'll be really quick here, but the objective that we talk about when we're talking about the ability to have a strong mindset, why it's so important, and this is where you need to connect the dots in your business. Why do you want to listen to great stuff? Why do you want to read great things? Why do you want to self-improve? Why? Well, you have to connect the dots to the fact that it represents the goals and the dreams that you want. And find a way to say, well, I want A, B, C, and D. And in order for me to do that, I've got to call, knock on, SOI market, whatever. I have to do these things that sometimes aren't fun. And so in order for me to do that, I've got to gear up for it. I've got to be ready for it. And when you connect the dots or see how these things have kind of a common thread between them, it makes it a little bit easier to do the job. And is there anybody in here that wouldn't like a few more transactions on their plate right now? Is there anyone in here that wouldn't love it if it was just a little bit easier to jump and make that first phone call each day? I don't care how long you've been doing it, right? It's all of us would love and appreciate that. And it starts with that mindset, and you build upon that. You'll create it and then you protect it. Like to Amy's point, man, if you have done so many things for yourself to not lie to yourself and have integrity with yourself, how hard would you fight to protect that? What would you do? You'd probably be careful even on what you promised yourself too, just to make sure you didn't lie to yourself, right? Okay, one important book that we talk about all the time, and I just want to share with you this, the Think and Grow Rich, okay, the ultimate mindset book, so important. And here's the part that I think is so relevant to real estate agents and the real estate profession. He talks about the 6 basic fears in life that we have, and that all fears, whatever they might be, are somehow an appendage to these 6 basic fears. The first fear is the fear of poverty. Now, when I talk about the fear of poverty, right, we're talking about mindset, fear. The fear of poverty is not necessarily, oh, I'm going to be living in a cardboard box on the side of the road. But the fear of poverty might be, oh man, how am I going to make this house payment? How am I going to make this car payment? How am I going to make this gas payment or electric payment, right? If we did a poll in this room, I'm sure we would have some great stories that everyone would share, and where we've seen struggles and had tough moments in tough markets or tough jobs or whatever it might be. But that fear of poverty that we have, I just listened to Tom Lloyd, the owner of the building, a moment ago. I mean, very wealthy man, talking about how, yeah, sometimes I'm more motivated to lay in bed than I am to get up and go do the job. This was years ago, but kind of interesting. Here's what I find fascinating. In this book, it talks about, this is the fear people have. Here are the symptoms of the fear, right? So like the symptoms of a cold, it's like a NyQuil commercial, coughing, aching, stuffy head, fever, so you can rest your head medicine, whatever it says, right? Those are the symptoms of the cold. Well, what are the symptoms of someone who might be worrying about money? Indifference, indecision, doubt, worry, overcaution, procrastination, and expecting poverty instead of demanding riches. It's pretty remarkable when you think about that. The things that are a symptom of someone being afraid of no money is actually stuff that will never make you money, right? Being indifferent, not making decisions, being doubtful, overcautious, worry. That's not going to help you in this business, right? Now, are you allowed to have your moments course you are. Is it gonna be perfect? Is it gonna get off track? No question about it. But it's so important for you to take a moment and recognize that, look, if I'm indifferent, if I'm indecisive, if I'm being overly cautious and worrisome, perhaps I'm experiencing the fear of no money, the fear of poverty. And how do you overcome that? Right? And I did this a while ago and I won't do it now, but I'm just going to encourage everybody because of time. Go to the book, Think and Grow Rich, look up the 6 basic fears, look that up. If you go into the dictionary and just on your phone and look up the antonym or the opposite of indifference and indecision, and you look at what those words are, it's powerful to think about, well, what can I do? And here's what else I find fascinating. And I'm not trying to beat a dead horse. I'm just going to say these words again. Indifference, indecision, doubt, worry, overcaution, procrastination. Where are most of those things existing? Right here. And so is having a strong mindset important? Can it make you more dollars? Well, then let's do the very thing that was suggested and figure out ways to feed our mind with the good stuff. And make certain that at very minimum, think about what Amy said today and say, I'm going to have some integrity with myself. And at very minimum, here's 3 action items I'm going to do to strengthen my mindset daily. And I don't care what that is. If it were me, and it is me too, is I'm going to be going, man, I need to listen to more podcasts. I love listening to music when I'm on the road, and I love listening to interviews and funny stuff. But should I be listening to more podcasts? Should I be listening to more Tony Robbins? I mean, I had a moment like this over the holidays. So what I did is I actually signed up for a Tony Robbins thing. And it's like $100 a month, but the content is unbelievable. And I just get inundated with awesome Tony Robbins stuff. And as a gen, have I been perfect with it? No. But if I looked at the last 90 days of 2022 versus the first 180 days or 150 days of 2023, has there been a clear shift in the way in which I'm spending my time and what I'm hearing between my ears? 100%. So get the integrity with yourself, pick a few items that you can commit to and watch your mindset and be conscious of it. That was such an important word. Be conscious of what you're working toward and what you're creating so that then you can be adamant and strong at protecting it at every level. Sound good? Guys, you're amazing. Have an awesome day. Thank you.